Apple is an American corporation that designs and manufactures computer hardware, software, and other consumer electronics. The company is best known for their Macintosh personal computer line, Mac OS X, extremely loyal user base, iTunes media application, and the iPod personal music player. Apple was established on April 1, 1976 by Steve Jobs, Steve Wozniak, and Ronald Wayne to sell the Apple I personal computer kit. Steve Jobs was said to own 45% of the company, Steve Wozniak with 45%, and Wayne with the remaining 10%. While Jobs and Wozniak were young, with little to no assets, Ronald Wayne was older with personal assets and was scared to put these at risk. This resulted in Wayne selling his share of the company back to Jobs and Wozniak for a reported $800. Today, Wayne's share of the company would be worth over $3 billion. Talk about hindsight. Wozniak was a maverick of the technology product and has manufactured various devices illegally. One of his highly intriguing inventions was a device which allowed people to make long-distance calls. He made this device by hacking illegally the networks of AT&T. The first ever personal computer of Apple used TV as the display medium, which was revolutionizing in its own self, as before that no personal computers offered any sort of display. It worked much faster than other machines and provided an easy startup RAM and bootstrap code. The first order came from the local computer shop, which offered to buy 50 computers, paying $50 for each. Both Jobs and Wozniak supplied the order themselves, spending every penny and a lot of sleepless nights. After establishing the foothold with Apple I and registering monetary gains, Apple introduced a new and advanced version, Apple II. It was really popular in that time, owing to its remote TV interface, which aptly handled the graphics and colors. The future endeavors demanded money, and thus the investments came from Mike Markula. He was deeply impressed with the success format explained to him by Steve Jobs, and invested a flamboyant sum of $92,000, and further $250,000, which came as a bank loan. Markula also played the role of mentor in both Jobs and Wozniak's lives, and provided them with expert management and business solutions. The first CEO of Apple, Michael Scott, not the Office character, the person who suggested the invention of floppy, was also brought by Markula. Macintosh, which is the most famous product Apple, was actually the first computer to make use of graphic mouse interface. It was formed after one of the Apple employees, Jeff Raskin, repeatedly stressed over the need to develop easy-looking computers for a common man. Remember the name, we owe him. In 1985, after a long drawn-out fight with the Apple board, Steve Jobs left the company that he helped create. Some say he was pushed or ousted, others say he left simply to pursue other projects. That being said, his next move was Next, a tech company he founded that specialized in higher education and business. 1 year later, in 1986, Steve Jobs took a major interest in a small division of Lucasfilm, focused on the development of computer-generated graphics for animated movies. The company now known as Pixar was acquired by Jobs. 1 year later, after the release of Toy Story in 1996, Apple bought the next company that Jobs owned and asked him to come back in a leadership role. He was interim CEO from 1997 to 2000, becoming the permanent CEO from that point until his eventual resignation in August of 2011. When Jobs came on board in 1996, Apple was still very much a niche computer platform. Windows-based PCs were owned by the vast majority of consumers, with the higher-priced Apple computers mainly being used by the creative industries, including advertising, design, and motion pictures. However, that all changed when the iPod came along in November of 2001. Apple was suddenly on everyone's lips. The idea that thousands of songs could be stored digitally on one small device, much smaller than any Walkman or CD player, was mind-blowing. Within a few years, Apple was the technology that everyone wanted to own, and then came the iPhone in 2007, which took Apple from a major player to the company everyone was trying to emulate. In 2010, after many variations of the iPhone, the iPad was launched to an initially lukewarm reception. People didn't see the need for it, but Steve Jobs knew it was going to have a big impact, and it did. By March 2011, over 15 million iPods were on the market. The health of Steve Jobs had been in question since around 2006, when his gaunt, frail appearance and lackluster delivery were the focus of his WWDC keynote address. Jobs had announced his condition, pancreatic cancer, to his staff in mid-2004. Between 2003 and his death in August 2011, Jobs underwent many procedures and therapies to try and beat the cancer, but it was too aggressive. He stepped down as the CEO of Apple on August 24th, 2011 and died just a few weeks later on September 11th, the 10th anniversary of the attack on the Twin Towers. Now some interesting facts for you guys. Did you know that smoking near Apple computers voids the warranty? Apple sold 340,000 iPhones per day in 2012. And Apple earns around $300,000 per minute. Everything you say to Siri is sent to Apple, analyzed and stored. Apple has more operating cash than the USA Treasury. Apple's iPhone has higher sales than everything Microsoft has to offer, no bias. In Japan's Apple Store, there was a fan who started waiting in line 7 months early for the iPhone 6. Hope you enjoyed the first video with voiceover, guys. See you next episode.